Sometimes when I think like, oh yeah, I think I got a handle on like a little, and then I'm like, I don't know nothing. I read a different book and I'm like, I don't even know what they're saying.
That's why sometimes like even on like Instagram, I'm like, nope, I'm just shutting it off. I'm not scrolling anyone else's posts because it will make me realize how incredibly inadequate I feel.
Well,
right.
But they specify like their interest. It's probably people research for me. This is totally different probably for your field, but like people research what will benefit them or someone they know. So like they'll have their thing that they know a lot about and that's all they share about. But like they probably couldn't talk very educated on this other topic that you know a lot about. So everyone just has their
kind of like our stories are all like someone will say, well, I'm not as far along as you. And I'm like, no, like you're in a different place than me. Like it's different.
Yeah.
It's 100% different if someone has celiac versus someone who is doing it because their kid can't poop and they think it'll help. Like, you know, and like you said, like our passions become things like Alzheimer's because we know someone who suffered from it. Like, you know, that's why sometimes our greatest struggles become our greatest ministries, you know, or our hardest struggles are things that becomes the thing that we get excited to talk about because we understand, you know, there's in a world that feels so incredibly disconnected when you can share something in common with someone.
I was talking with Taylor, you know, like I was talking with a friend and I was like, I have this terrible personality trait that like, if I can't connect to you, like on below the surface and like get like, just connect on something, not just like, oh, hey, like if we're always surface level, like in my mind, I shut you down in my brain. I'm like, we don't need to be friends. Like if you can't like engage in something besides like the superficial stuff, like then I don't want to talk to you. Like it's wasting my time. And then they're dead in my mind. Like it's really screwed up. Like I should see someone, but like I don't value them as much.
Yeah.
Cause I'm like, you're just like, I need to talk to people who will like actually communicate and not, I don't know. I think of them as like self-absorbed who only stay. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's screwed up.
But sometimes it's a self-defense mechanism that you think.
For them?
Yeah.
Probably. But then again, I'm also like, hey, like, here's an opportunity to just like be on, like I'm not going to judge. Like, I talk about way too much. But I think that's like a slight gift I have that I can make, like, I don't get embarrassed easy. So I can, like, I'll talk about whatever. And I think I've had people tell me, it's like, oh, you're like, the way you speak just so openly, you don't really care is kind of freeing. I'm like, yeah, it's great. But also, sometimes I'm a little much for people.
So about you being open and just willing to share whatever. Yeah.
Which this is not urine, by the way. This is ginger tea and milk thistle. So sorry. Continue.
I just totally went blank there. Today on our podcast, we are going to be talking about Aileeah and some of her health journey, specifically when it comes to acne. I feel like that can be a really big, it can be something people really struggle with all throughout their life, you know? So we're just going to let you overshare all of your fun, super great details.
No, it's not, I don't want to do this because like, it's like, oh, like I'm healed, but I am not in the sense of like, oh, buy this product, like this topical product. Because like when I did have acne, and I didn't have acne growing up, never had a pimple until I was like 20. Like
you didn't have it when you were like going through puberty or anything?
Nothing. Never had it. And until I was like, I think, how old was I? 25, maybe 6, when I started getting like pimples on my cheeks. And then it just over time got worse to the point where like Dave knew I had acne, but he never saw like how red and bad it was because I would wake up before him and go put makeup on because I didn't want him to see it because I was like so embarrassed that it was so bad. Or I'd wake up in the morning and I'd like touch my face and be like, oh, it's still there. Oh, like it was just like, it was so bad. But I did a deep dive into things like online. I bought every product, even if it was filled with awful chemicals, because like I don't care at this point. I was like, I just want to feel, I want my skin to not look so bad. But it also correlated with my gut health. My gut health was trash, but I was so worried about the outward appearance that I didn't really care about the inward appearance, because I was like, I have to get looking better before I heal. And so long story short, I think it all came to a head like right before the pandemic, where I was,
Sorry.
what?
Pimples. And it came to a head.
No pun intended. Wah, wah, wah. That's a good one. Good job.
Like a dad joke, but
I'm used to it. I'm married to Dave. So it all, came to a head like right before the pandemic, where, and I'll put in pictures as we do this, because I have so many pictures of just like, what the heck? Like I remember thinking like something's off. And I think everybody's instinct is to go to hormones all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was my hormones. And we can talk deeper into basically how you healed me. You're welcome. It's how it happened. But it just like, it progressively got worse and worse and worse. And like, I think I just wasn't managing stress properly. My gut health was trash, and I wasn't sleeping super well. I was waking up from like 1 to 3 every night. And I was waking up in like torrential sweat and panic. Asked Dave. He's like, I would wake up and I'd rip off all of my clothes because they were wet, and I'd freak out. And my acne was bad, which wrecks your confidence. And I think my hope for this podcast is that if there's someone on the other side, because there's so many things on the internet now, it's like, oh, buy this really special $50 cream. It's like, I genuinely believe that topical things can't help. That's an internal thing. What do you think?
Yeah. I had a question for you and I totally lost it. Did your mind go to hormones? Like
my mind went to hormones, because that's what everyone
told
on the
you.
internet told me. And I don't think it was hormones. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe the stress hormone was off. I don't know. I guess you can lean into that. But basically the pandemic hit, and I slept for like the first 3 months of the pandemic. Because I was laid off, and I slept. Basically, I woke up at like 9 or 10, because why would I get up early if I didn't have to? I'd eat breakfast, have a cup of coffee, and then by noon I'd go back to sleep, and then sleep till 3, wake up, eat dinner, be in bed by 9:30. And like I couldn't function. Like I couldn't stay awake. And all I was worried about.
Did your acne get worse?
Oh, it was awful. Like that's when I don't know what happened or how the body works. I don't know if like in my mind, I kind of think of it as it was all there, and it was hot to the touch, and it was inflamed, and it was painful, but it all came. Now I can't not say it. Sorry. And it came to head when the pandemic happened, but I feel like it, like whatever happened, it was like the floodgate opened, and I don't know if it was God being like, hey, now's the time to handle how bad you feel, or I don't know what happened. I don't know why it suddenly, like when the pandemic hit, it just like was.
Do you think it was there before and you just didn't notice it as much, or do you think like,
well, not always, but it would alternate. It'd be like 1 month there'd be like a cluster of really painful on one side but not the other, and I'm like, oh, it's getting better. And then once those would go down and the other side would come up, I'm like, what the heck is happening? But then when I was at home all the time and forced to stay home, it just like all over, like, and it would stay all the time, and it was terrible. But I say all this and to say that like there's hope. And I don't know, would you talk a little bit about, I don't know, do you remember that time very often? Like I remember doing that.
Feels like a really long time
ago.
It
was. So do you remember, so she works on, well, even before that, do you remember, what was that oxygen therapy?
Oh yes, the Livo2.
I hated it, but because like it made me super claustrophobic. I don't know. Oh, I just don't like things over my mouth. That's like why I don't snorkel or scuba dive. Like, panic. Anyways. But I remember going and being mortified because like the thing had makeup all over it, and I was like, oh, Emily's gonna see my acne. I'm like, why? In hindsight, I think it's because I was just tired and exhausted, and I didn't like when you're so depleted, everything is a big deal.
Yeah. Do you think it is because it was like later in life acne? Like, do you think if you had had it when you were really young, that you would have? Does that make sense? Like I feel like when all of your friends have it in high school, it's like everybody's complaining about their acne. But like as an adult, you feel like you shouldn't have acne.
Yeah.
And because it was like new, then.
Yeah, because I didn't know how to handle it. I was like, because I didn't have the, like, oh yeah, when I was a teenager, this is what I did, whatever.
Right.
And I tried going to, like, you know, they say like, oh, go to your doctor to find out if your hormones are balanced. And I went to 2 different doctors and they would just try to put me on birth control. And I had tried the birth control route, not for acne, just for birth control for like 6 months, and it turned me into a psychopath. And I told Dave, and he's still like freaked out by this, that I think I've told you this before, that like I think I was a schizophrenic when I was on birth control. Like I had conversations in my mind of like I would make up so many stories and they would be true to me to a certain extent. And then I would be like mad at him for a certain thing. He's like, why are you mad? I'm like, because you did this. But like, it was weird. And it only lasted like 4, 5, 6 months. I can't even remember. But I was like, this isn't me. I'm not a paranoid person. This is odd. So
when did your acne get worse after?
That's when it all like, then I started getting regular pimples. And I feel like ever since then, it was just like yearly, it would get like that much more worse. And then like, it just all like floodgates opened.
Yeah.
And at 27.
Yeah.
Which sucks. But there's hope because we got all the parasites out of me.
Yeah.
Gut, which I don't know if that's what it was. Like,
and I think it's so interesting, right? Because I think that we like to think that hormones are a primary issue, but really hormones are a secondary issue.
Yeah.
There's a reason your hormones are off to begin with. If you look at the body, you know, it can be really primitive in some aspects. It's super complex, but then at the same time, it can be very, you know, black and white in other areas. And I tend to think like, if the idea of the body is survival, do you need to reproduce at that point? You know, on top of the fact that what is coming out in the skin, whether it's on the face or arms or back or anything like that, that is a detox pathway. So when part of our drainage pathway, when we're not going to the bathroom, when the liver is super congested, when the lymph is all clogged up and we don't have energy or mitochondria health and all these different aspects, sometimes the body has to excrete it through the skin, which is often where you see skin issues. Remind me if you were sweating at that point.
Oh, no, I wasn't sweating, which I thought was a great thing.
You like woke up with night sweats.
I woke up with night sweats, but like if I had to go outside, like I got to the point where I was avoiding the heat because I couldn't go outside and like go for a long walk in the middle of July because I wouldn't sweat. And then I would get to the point where I'd be like, I'm going to die if I don't get cool air now. And then I'd have to like go inside and then I'd be spent the rest of the day because I wasn't able to.
Because again, a detox pathway almost wasn't open at that point in terms of sweating.
Yeah.
So I think for you.
And now I sweat so much, which I would never have thought that. I think I sent you a Marco Polo. It was like, I was like, I'm so sweaty and I love it because I would work out. And that's why I didn't like working out because like I couldn't get myself to sweat. Whereas like the people friends I work out with, they'd have like a sweat ring. And I'm like, I don't like literally, I was like, am I not working out as hard? Like, I'm doing the same things, but I would feel nauseous.
Right.
Because I wasn't.
No. And I see that in adults and kids, right? Like, what is sweat? Sweat is our body's ability to regulate that temperature. So when we get overheated and we don't have the regulation, you don't have, I feel like so many of us, like we assume that sweat is like our bodies being like, oh my word, like it is hot, I need to calm down. But when we don't sweat, then often it's like we just keep pushing ourselves to the point where you pass out or you get complete heat exhaustion or heat rash or something because of the fact that you actually are just overheated because you're not sweating.
Yeah.
And so I think for you, our biggest thing was like, I was like, I really think it's your liver, you know, because I think so much of that's
which I did not expect that. I thought you'd be like, oh, your hormones are way off.
Right. Because I feel like we've had the conversation of hormones, especially because of the birth control and like it exacerbating the issue and being like, okay, but that's a secondary issue. Why are your hormones not working? You know, why is the body shutting off that process of like, we don't need to deal with this right now. Like, yes, again, people have different hormones. It's truly not my specialty. At the same time, I feel like I do know enough to help you.
Yeah. It wasn't hormones.
Yeah. And so I feel like we did a liver cleanse. I was like, I'm going to do this liver cleanse. I think you should do it with me.
Yeah.
And
I should preface though, like I tried being dairy free for a long time before I tried it for a little while and then it didn't work. And so I was like, well, if I want to still have acne, I might as well eat some yummy cheese. And so I tried that. And so when you have acne, people are like, oh, just try cutting out dairy. I'm like, I'm going to punch you in the face. And I'm going to cut out dairy one more time.
Because it's like out dairy.
Well, but it's cut out dairy, cut out gluten. And I think, didn't you have to cut out caffeine for a little while? Mm-hmm. And like
before King Coffee.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, get that coffee out of here. It's not helping.
Yeah.
So let's backtrack. What are things that you did try?
I tried everything. I probably spent over $1,000 of money that we did not have to try to, not like at once. Like, you know,
are you like talking topical?
And I think I'd try something for a little while and I'd see a little bit of improvement. So then I'd keep going thinking that it would try like I did try certain probiotics and prebiotics and I was eating fairly clean. I did like my gluten-free alternative things, which were still focused.
So no gluten and no dairy.
No gluten, no dairy. I did drink a lot of coffee and my water intake wasn't super great, but I would try drinking a gallon a day for 3 months and then nothing would change. I'd just pee a lot and I'm like, forget it. But then I really don't know what was that tick factor of go see Emily. I don't know what it was. I don't even remember. We should look back and see if there's a text or something.
Yeah.
An Instagram message. I don't know.
I don't remember. So I remember you being like, all right, I'm ready to do this. And because I feel like we'd had this conversation for multiple times. I was like, let me help you. And you're like, I think part of it is you were busy.
We were busy
too.
Yeah. And I think there's this, I hear this from people all the time. And I thought it too.
Yeah. Because I'll get to this point and then I'll go see someone.
Well, that too. But also is this going to make me poop my brains out all the time? Why is that I talk to people and they're like, I can't go see a NTP because then I'll need to be in your bathroom all the time. Why is that a thing? Because that's what my thought was I'm out on shoots a lot. I'm out on the road. I don't want to
Do you think it's just because people assume detox?
Yeah, I live with poop and water. I think that's what people associate it with, and I did too.
I don't know if I've ever heard that. That's
poop and water.
No, I've heard people saying, I know what I'm supposed to eat once I eat this, or once I lose weight, or once I do A, B, or C, then I'll come get help. Because if I can't do that on my own, how am I supposed to
I think it's the opposite though. I think you can only have time to learn so much, and you should go find someone you trust, which is important. Yeah. So I think if you go the traditional doctor route, you can doctor shop. You can fire them. You don't have to you don't have to be So for me, I did the doctor shopping thing and they were all like, oh, here's some birth control. I'm like, no, I did that before. Let's get to the root cause. And they were like, there is no root cause. We got to balance your hormones and this is how you do it. And it was I was in a full on argument with the doctor.
Wow. What did he want you to do?
It was a woman. And she wanted me to go on birth control. And I was like, no. Oh, and she was like, it's not going to affect because I was like, I fear that it's going to, I was like, I know all of my friends, a lot of my friends have been on birth control since they were 14, 15, and they're all having trouble conceiving.
Yes.
And they're having multiple miscarriages.
Or you just have no drive.
Or you have no drive to do anything, or you gain a bunch of weight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want that. I was like, it's not for me. And she's like, it doesn't do any of those things. And I'm like, oh. Well, and I said the words, well, you're fired. So, and she was like, excuse me? And I was like, you're fired. I was like, I'm not giving you my money. You're fired. And I disputed the bill and everything. So you didn't help me. You didn't do anything. You just yelled at me and tried to bully me into doing something. No, you're fired and you're not getting paid. If I did if it was reversed and you came into my field and I didn't do what you wanted or didn't help you in the proper way, I wouldn't get paid. You wouldn't pay me. I'm not going to pay you.
Oh.
So, anyways, so you can shop. You can shop for your care providers.
Yeah.
And
which is, I think, somewhat of the beauty of kind of holistic world and social media is I feel like so many people now are really putting themselves out there. Yeah. And I feel like it's so you can't like go to a doctor or dentist and like, can I just have like a 15-minute consult to get to know you and how you will handle this? It's going to be, I don't know, maybe someone out there who knows how to do that. I have not heard of anyone in our area that is an option or a thing. Yeah. Can I just like hang out with you for 10 minutes and see if I actually want you to be my physician or practitioner? So I love that aspect of social media, right? Of like getting to really have a feel for someone, and if that is something that resonates with you, which I think is super cool. So yeah, I feel like we started, with the idea of hormones. I was like, I don't think it's your hormone. At least if it is your hormones, it's a secondary issue. I really, really think we need to work on your liver.
Do you have the original forum I filled out? Do you have that somewhere? Is that somewhere?
I should. Yeah.
Is it easily accessible or no?
I'll see if I can find it. Was it, I just don't remember what platform
it was.
Was it just
it was an online,
was it just an email?
Long questionnaire. It was, I bet I could find the email.
Okay.
But
I'll look for it. Yeah.
I don't know. Interesting. I would, because I look back at, and I remember you saying something of like, write down your goals of like what you want.
Yeah.
Like, what's the goal? And like, mine was like to sleep through the night. Mm-hmm. And you quickly forget, because when you start sleeping through the night, and you're like, oh, it's great. And then you look back and you're like,
or you have like the 2 nights that you don't actually sleep well. And then all of a sudden you're like, it's not working. And it's like, but you went a whole month and slept fine. You just had those 2 nights. And you're like, I don't care. I mean, I have people all the time that think it doesn't work. I'm like, doesn't work because it's not instant.
Yeah.
I feel like you had a beautiful like external drive.
Yeah.
Right? Where sometimes it's our gut or it's our brain. And then if we have terrible brain fog, which you had also,
I did, yeah.
We forget why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was bad. Like I would go, that's why I started like years ago on like bulletproof coffee, because they were like high fat, it'd be good. And it did serve me for a time. Then I think I did too much.
Because your liver wasn't working fat.
And so like, well, it got to the point.
Conjugate that fat.
I totally forgot about this. I remember like waking up and being like, I have to make coffee, and like feeling almost like panicked about drinking coffee before I even brewed the coffee. And like, that was my body saying like, oh, I need it. It's like, even though I was drinking organic grinds, it was grass-fed butter, like things weren't working properly. So go to you. We do like a month of like supplements of prep work, which I swear, I remember texting you. I wish I would have prepped for this and like gone back and had all this.
We will. We can always add it though.
Yeah. Yeah. That like, I remember being like 2-3 days on minerals, being like, I feel like I could see straight again. Like, I feel like I was just like, this is really hazy. Because that was the problem. It was like, it was just, even though it was like brain fog, it was like my eyes were foggy. Things were just foggy. So anyways, we did like, like a month of supplements, and then did a liver detox.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that was kind of like our big drive, right? Because we did the liver detox, and you did it with me. I was doing one at home.
Yeah.
And did Dave do it with you the very first time? Okay. Because maybe I had already done one, and I was going to do a second one. And I was like, Leah, you have to do this with me. And so our husbands did it with us. We all did it. And then it was funny because we were texting each other throughout the day on like cleanse day. And I think at one point you were like, we should have had like a movie day or whatever, because my husband was like, fine, until he drank all the stuff. Because we had done like a week of prep, and then
your prep makes you feel so good. Like the prep is great.
Yeah. And then you do this, and then you're like, I can't.
I remember. So, do you want to explain?
We're going to explain all this, and everyone's we're never doing.
Will you explain the prep, and then explain the cleanse day, and then I'll tell you how my prep / cleanse day went.
Okay. Yeah, I would say just the type of liver cleanse that I've walked people through is a little different than some of them out there. And
you should probably have a care provider do this with you, or supervise it.
Understand, if you're ready for it.
Because you can't just find one on Pinterest, because those have gone wrong for me too. Like where you do the wrong detox on, like find on Pinterest, and you didn't open pathways first before you started detoxing, and have nowhere to go. I'm guessing is.
Yeah. And I mean, we spent a whole week doing things like coffee enemas, right? So that's opening up those bile ducts and increasing glutathione and starting to gently pull and detox through the liver just by those, castor oil packs. So that's absorbing into the skin and again helping detox and glutathione production and other things.
Yeah.
So we're giving the liver lots and lots of love. We're using supplements that are not only binding, because you want to make sure that you're binding as you're pulling out things through the liver. We were binding, we were softening. So we had specific supplements that were coming in, and if there were any gallstones or liver stones within those bile ducts, that they were supplements that were coming in and softening those. Because I think that's where people end up in the ER, is because they don't do enough prep. They don't soften those, and then they try to force it through. We were changing up diet, not eating things like caffeine and sugar and processed foods and meats and things that are a little harder to digest and harder on the liver, and instead doing a lot of bitter foods, a lot of foods that were stimulating the liver. We were doing more and more liquids throughout the week just to kind of prep for like a complete liquid fast day. But again, taking pressure off digestion, helping absorption, building. We weren't eating a lot of fats. So that kind of creates some pressure in that liver. So then when you do introduce fats on cleanse day, it creates this pressure and it kind of squeezes, if you will, the liver or gallbladder, and then helps kind of by force push out the toxins. So we kind of prepped through lifestyle, diet, and supplements, really, which is kind of my motto, I feel like, all the time. I'm like, you have to, and mindset, which kind of goes with lifestyle. But, really loving the liver a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the prep was wonderful. I loved it. And I still sometimes, I wish I want to do a prep again. Or like, I need to do a whole liver detox. I haven't done it.
It's true.
In a year.
Yeah.
But
should we do it together?
Yeah, let's do it. Please don't make me do it alone.
We'll do it. Let's do it. And
I couldn't look at olive oil.
I haven't done one since the spring, but it's probably time.
Huh.
Yeah.
Was it ours was the last one, or did you do it again?
I think I've done 7 since last year.
Whoa.
Yeah. Because again, I feel like for me, I had done so much with my health journey.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until I started implementing things like coffee enemas. And for me, it seemed like the liver was a really, really big thing. So as I've been really good now, but the first one I did within like 2 months, all the symptoms came back. I was like, whoop, and we're going again. I had done parasite cleanses and all these other things, and I could never seem to move the needle for very long until I started doing liver cleanses. And then every couple months, I was like, I need to do another one.
I think like your body knows though, because like in my mind, like I think about it a couple times a week, and I'm like, is that my body saying like, hey, let's do another one of those? So does it make you feel good?
And again, I don't necessarily have. This is kind of more of. I don't necessarily know if I've ever heard someone speak on this in terms of an expert or seen science, but it makes sense to me that as you bust biofilms and as you work through kind of those layers of healing, where does it all have to get filtered through? On top of just our normal toxic load, it has to get filtered through that liver. And so what I have found in these liver cleanses, and I guess it's actually probably been almost 2 years, because it was right before everything got shut down that I started doing them, which is crazy to me, because in my brain, it was like last year, but it really was like almost
20
and a half. Yeah, it was like a year and a half or something. Yeah. So it was like 2019, I guess. Anyway, and every time I've cleansed, it's been different. Like my experience has been different. And so I'm like, oh, well, it's because every time I've, cleansed, I could go longer in between liver cleanses, but it would depend on what protocol I was on. If I was like, oh, I'm really hitting Lyme, let's say, and I'm really going to kill all this Lyme. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I need a liver cleanse faster. But if I'm just like coasting on maintenance, then I don't necessarily feel, or if I'm working on brain, or if I'm working on something that just doesn't, I don't know. It's interesting to me that I have also seen my own body want it more during certain protocols.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yes. But so we did that. And I think for you,
I'll put up a picture of before. Would you remember the date we did it? It was right. So I have a picture of progression of like before the liver detox.
Was it like June?
And after the liver detox. I'll look back and have the dates on it, but the before and after of just that.
It was like August or September.
2 weeks. Yeah. In the span of that 2 weeks, well, the liver, like the prep was like 5 days, and then basically like the 1 day of liver detox. But then like it was significantly different after a week after, and then 2 weeks after, and then it was amazing.
Yeah. And I think for her, like,
liver.
we had like cleanse day, where you drink a ton of olive oil and citrus juice and you do enemas and you kind of lay around because you feel kind of nauseous.
Well, and Emily was like, so you're not going to feel great this day. So like, prep a movie you want to, a couple movies you want to watch.
Get in the mindset.
And I was like, I'll be fine. Everything will be fine. And so I'm like cleaning my house, doing my laundry. And at that time, our laundry room was in the basement. And I remember carrying up like a big, because I have moderation problems. I was carrying up like a big thing of laundry and like being like halfway up the flight of stairs and being like, and I just dropped the laundry basket, crawled over it, and then went and crawled on the couch. And I was like, But what was it?
Emily was right.
She was right. And also, I remember we were texting back and forth that day because we're all like, sleepy.
Because my husband was the same way. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, boom, he's on the floor.
Yeah.
And just laid there.
Well, so Dave was like, oh, it'll be fine. And he came in from outside and was like, And so we laid there and watched the Munsters. I remember the whole afternoon. But I was like, hey, like we're nauseous, whatever. And she was like, do it to each other and like press on the liver and like wiggle. The amount of relief that brought was
awesome.
Insane.
Yeah.
I was like, so I don't know. Do you want to explain that? I'm guessing that helped to push out
liver compressions. Yeah. So Dr. Klinghardt, physician I followed for years, and he talks about manually compressing both the brain as well as that liver.
Brain? What do I do to my brain?
Have we not done? Okay, so we'll have to, maybe I will add to the show notes the link to his video where it just talks about that manual compression of that lymphatic system and just by manually compressing. I'll show you when we're done.
Well, so sometimes like I still feel like I sometimes have that same feeling that I remember from that day of detox, and I'll just squeeze my liver sometimes because I feel like I need it. Yeah. And then usually that's parasite.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Also,
yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. But I think the biggest thing for you, right, was like we did this liver cleanse, and the first time I did it, I passed, hundreds of gallstones. So you were looking for that because that was, again,
she just said, like, look at your poop.
Yeah.
Like,
I was like, oh, it's going to be this. So she's like, I didn't pass any of those, but I passed like hundreds of these like red things. And she like took a picture. I was like, those are all liver flukes. Like those are parasites. And she's like, but I wasn't doing a parasite cleanse. And I was like, I know, you were cleaning out your liver and like those were all in your liver.
And they still come out sometimes.
Yeah. So I feel like that was kind of like our first and ever since
now we know my poop. Ever since
now we know where we're going, right?
Yeah.
We're going to work on parasites next.
Yeah,
because we clearly have them. I think most people have them, but under this context, you were expecting gallstones, liver stones, bile stones to come out, and you got a bunch of parasites.
Yeah, a lot of parasites, and for like a while after that too.
Yeah,
because you again,
those
I didn't. Again, I always say. I hated when people said, like, never say never, Yeah. I'm like, shut up. I can totally stick to my word. She was talking about coffee enemas, and I know this is just maybe uncomfortable for some people, not for me. But you would talk about coffee enemas. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like, that doesn't seem necessary. But I remember feeling nauseous. I think the first day I did it was the detox day.
Oh, yeah.
And because I was like, I just didn't feel good. And I was like, I just want to feel better. And I was like, I bought the stuff. I just need to do it and get it over with. And like, you poor girl, the amount of pictures you probably got from me, in the last 2 years, like year and a half.
No, but I mean I know we joke, this is digressing, but like, I need like a poop emoji picture in my office or like at home when I like talk to people because I'm like, people be like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, if you only understood what pretty much complete strangers often will show me when they start working with me, and I've seen them once or twice, and they will be like, sending me pictures. Does this look normal? I even had one lady who's an artist by nature, so she would draw them. I have these pictures of these, like,
you should frame them.
Yeah, I mean, and they're in pencil on paper. Like, I mean, they actually are really kind of pretty. Because like they're not a toilet picture.
People are like, it is. Yeah. It does ruin it.
So I feel like for me, sometimes I have to like remember that like other people don't like talking about this because I'm like, it's just. Like, it's okay. Like, talk about parasites, talk about poop. It's fine. Like,
and I didn't even, so I remember, it's just like, opening your brain to different ideas. I didn't even realize that I'm like, I've never traveled internationally. I've been to Canada. Like, people
I didn't go to the Dominican, so
yeah, you correlate like international travel with parasites, and that's not the case. It's very prevalent here and just everywhere in the in the world. It's very common. And so when I remember I did the detox, whether it was the red things or the green bulbs. Do you remember the green bulbs?
The balls? Yeah.
What were those again?
Those are like bile.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember her saying parasites, and I was like, what? I have parasites? Like, parasites are even a thing? And then we did this whole parasite protocol, which was amazing in a sense of like, it makes you like know your body way better.
It's like popping a zit too, right? You're like,
it is kind of like the same sense.
It's like you look at it and you're so grateful it's out of you.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, you can't look away, but it's gross, and it's like,
how long have you been in there to be that large?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can have really old parasites that are just a different type that are tiny. So
I hate that. I mean, I hate it, but I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah. So look at her face now.
So we are in the era of pandemic, whatever.
Oh.
And so the only time it really comes back is when I have no option but to wear a mask. Like if I fly, which I fly once a month, maybe twice every other month or something. But, or like if I'm stressed, my thing is like I rub my chin and I get a pimple right on my chin. But like otherwise, when you've had acne, did you ever have acne?
Yeah, I don't think to that degree, like I think mine, I definitely had it. I tend to get it on my forehead and like under my nose. So again, I think, face mapping is really interesting. Where do you get your acne tends to be kind of, there's some correlation.
Is this liver?
Or I would say hormone. Yeah. And I mean, liver can kind of go hand in hand with that. I don't remember. I feel like I always have to I have to re-look it up. I know some things, but other things I forget.
I want to find what is actually accurate, because they vary on where you get it.
Yeah. But the idea that yours was very concentrated, I feel like mine has never been concentrated. It's like I will get it and it's just everywhere. And for me, often it's when I'm just not eating healthy and stress and just negative emotion. So as I've, I think for me, physical healing came first, spiritual healing came second. And like I'm in that phase of, I think, spiritual healing, because I'm feeling much better in my body, health wise. So I think when you can actually not have to think I feel bad, or I feel insecure, or I feel whatever those feelings are, superficially. Jacob, when you're watching this later, I'm waving at you through the kitchen. My brother's here. When you don't feel when you're not so focused on the feelings, you can actually focus on the mental things you've been putting aside, because you don't have the energy. Because that's harder. That's harder to deal with, really. Well, don't you think too, from a physical perspective, I know we talked about it before with just this, the book about stickers and dots and all this stuff, right? But I think that when you're in a place of healing, before healing, and you're sick, and your dyslexia, and your acne, and your all these things, your back pain, your gut, your weight, when you can chalk it up to part of who you are, and then you watch that change, and then all of a sudden you start questioning, oh, am I really actually, am I dumb? I always thought I was dumb. I always thought I was easily forgotten, and that I just didn't matter to people, and that nobody cared if I existed or not. All of a sudden it's if these things aren't true, and I've reversed these things, and I don't have these allergies anymore because grandma had them, and I don't have these seizures anymore, and so what else is a lie? Have
you ever listened to the Dr. John DeLonghi show? Mm-hmm. He's like the modern day Frasier.
Okay.
But a real therapist.
Yeah.
He talks about, I just like his show. They're you like short podcasts, I like really long podcasts.
And I listen to them on super speed, and
see, I like turning them on and listening to them as I do. So I feel like I'm multitasking. I'm learning something and also cleaning the house or whatever.
Yeah.
But he talks about when you have a thought that is always reoccurring. We all know those thoughts that we have. Mm-hmm. if you stop, write it down and demand evidence that that's true. So like for me, I was like, oh, and the same with Jim Quick.
Oh,
remember?
Yeah, I like
Jim Quick, the boy with the broken brain was his tagline. That was his sticker.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
And so, like mine was like, oh, I'm just not a good learner. I just don't learn like everybody else learns. Like I don't do well just sitting there reading a book. I need to go like bike or walk on the treadmill and read a book. Yeah. So that I know that I can, because I'm fantastic at multitasking, but if I have to do one thing at a time, but then it's getting rid of that sticker that at some point someone said, like, you just can't focus very well. You're not very good at learning.
You just into some box.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm an active kid and I don't think
so. This is like super, super digressing.
We can digress wherever we want. It's our podcast.
Okay. So I think you and I've talked about this idea of like that, Satan kind of seeing who you are when you're little or the potential you have when you're little. And I think that for so many of us, so many of our labels and traumas and things come when we're little.
Yeah.
It's not when we're older, even if we have trauma when we're older. So, I just finished a really good book and, it talks about trauma.
Is it The Body Keeps Score? Mm-hmm. I have it in I need to start it.
It's good. Warning on that book, you have to be in a place where it can be a huge trigger for a lot of people.
Oh, okay.
So I think always, I was like, oh, I wish I had that warning, because there was a few things that I was like, and I need to put it down and just keep it down there for a while, pray about if I should pick it back up or not, just because there were some triggers that I couldn't get out of my mind. So that was digressing even further. But this idea that like even trauma as an adult often then how we respond as an adult often stems from what happened when we were little.
Yeah.
And so I think that the enemy, again, this is why like my heart is to do this like kids programming and help these kids, is because I'm like, man, like there is something about what happens when we're little. There's something about that foundation that when we're little sets a lot of tone for the rest of our life. Yeah. So how does the enemy know what you're going to be or what that potential could be?
And he speaks it into an earlier age, so then you would take that on as your identity.
Yeah. And so I feel like I had this idea too of like names are really, really important, especially in the Bible. Like names mean something, and often God would change people's names to mean something, to call them into who they were. Mm. And so I started thinking about this idea, and I know you've mentioned this, and I don't know what your name means, or if you even know what it means.
I don't know.
But how you've mentioned like everyone had all these names, and then you were Aileeah.
Yeah.
And I always struggled because my family all had Bible names. My living siblings all had Bible names except for me. I was like, well, why didn't I get a Bible name? But this idea that like, even if our parents didn't seek the Lord on our name, I think the Lord still had a way and, gave our parents an idea. And obviously there are some really terrible names out there. So maybe not for everyone, but I think that in a lot of people's situations, like, what does your name mean? And so depending on what your name means, is that some potential that you are supposed to grow into? And the enemy is then going to be like, this is what you could be. So here's areas where I'm going to snuff you out because I know what God has called you.
Does he know?
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like, I don't think he knows as much as we like to give him credit for. Like he doesn't, like he can't, like the devil can't read our mind. He only knows so much. So I think what happens is like hurt people. And so the devil can just rely on that and be like, oh, I'm going to treat this, like make this person, just their bitterness, just rub off on this kid, which then is just going to ooze on to their kid. And so I don't think he has as much power as we like. I say that now, but depends on the day and the mood. I feel I'm like, but some, like, does that make sense? Like, I think we give him more power than, like, I think our names definitely mean something. Like, when you name a kid, there are reasons, like, there's certain kids that you're like, oh, the kids that always have that name are super geeky. Or, like, there's something, like, I don't know what it is. There's something about that name that makes, like, certain characteristics come out. Whether that's the enemy or whether that's, I don't know. I don't know what that is.
I thought that was interesting. And this may not apply in any context, but while I think that the enemy may not have as much power is. I think some people get way too focused on everything is the devil. And I think that is damning, you know? But at the same time, I think he's way sneakier than we think he is.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that he doesn't
steal, kill, and destroy. That's a pretty bold statement.
Yeah. Like he may not have to be like smart. He just has to be sneaky.
Yeah.
You know? So anyway, I just thought that was, you know, again, this idea of like, who are you to become and where is that in the...
Well, and I think it was along that same vein, I think I put a lot of my value in my looks for a long time. And so when my facial, my beauty was kind of just like, nope. Like to me it was taken away because
because you were flawed all of a sudden.
I had lots of flaws and we can get into that later, but it was I can hide and fix my hair and make myself look nice and nobody needs to know what's going on in my heart. But but I do think it was probably also paired with unresolved trauma of I was just inflamed from emotions, which you always talk about, like it's the mind-body connection of some people can't heal because they can't get their trauma healed. They won't. They want to just take a pill and heal their body, but they won't go through the emotional work. But yeah, it was interesting to have to adjust and be like, oh, okay. It's not all about you can't just hide everything behind foundation and lip gloss, which is nice sometimes. There's nothing wrong with it, depending on the brand you buy. But I don't know, it's interesting. There's hope, and I would say this is and maybe you'd think differently, which I don't think so, but I don't think it's a topical ointment that's going to save your acne if you're watching and because I heard this from a YouTuber I follow, and she's like, she talked about there's some skincare stuff that can help you, but you should also get your gut health right. I don't think it's any skincare that's going to save you. I think you should get your gut health right and go see a practitioner or holistic care provider that you trust. And that's where you're going to see, because it's your body saying something's wrong in a very noticeable way.
It depends on the acne, right? If it's just, you can tell where it's deep inside.
It was
hurt and pain and inflammation. Yeah. That's different than just some blackheads on your face that are more from an oil perspective. And that's maybe, understanding how the skin is the largest part of, it's the largest organ system. So are you rebalancing it? Are you putting good, healthy products on your skin? Are you making it worse by having super, super toxic chemicals? That is a conversation.
Yeah.
But there's this deep insight coming from the inside out.
Well, that's what it felt like. It felt like something needed to come out, and they were just deep, cystic, white. I have to talk to you about a parasite later. I'm not going to do it on camera. Well, I would gladly, but maybe it'd just be a little too much. I think we got to ease the people into this conversation.
We got to ask for it first.
Yeah. Well, I think we asked for so many people I've talked, which I, unfortunately, is for them, is a lot of people I've talked to about my parasites. And they're their brains almost it was the same as me. It's you can't it's what? What? I probably don't, because I've never been out of the country. Doesn't matter. You get them from everywhere in the world.
Have you ever eaten sushi? Have you ever swam in a lake? Have you ever walked barefoot?
I know. I can't give up walking barefoot, though. That's
no. But it's about resiliency, right? Everything. Yeah. Do you have a pet? Does that pet sleep with you in your bed?
Our dogs have been kicked out of our bed.
We deworm our pets. But then we don't deworm ourselves. And then we allow those same pets that need dewormed on our beds and lick our face.
Yeah. So parasites are now this Paragard. Have you heard of Paragard? Is it a good brand? I don't know.
I have no idea. I haven't looked into it.
It's so popular right now.
It's a Dr. X thing. I think it is.
I don't.
I feel like it's Dr. X or something. So I feel
I think he's legit, I think.
Yeah. So that was what I heard.
So it's popular right now. People are parasites, and I'm oh shoot, where was I going with this? Oh, I don't know. I lost my train of thought. But
okay,
find out if you have parasites and if it's contributing to your acne. because it's possible. Or it's your liver, which I never thought, because everyone was just trying to shove birth control down my throat and say, this will balance your hormones. Oh, well, we'll put a Band-Aid over the sinking ship.
I guess that's a good reminder. Do you want to Band-Aid?
Yeah.
Or coping skills, or add things that just temporary, whatever? Or do you really want to get to why things are off?
Yeah.
Because again, if we don't think that we can, because we don't realize we can go to the sea for a vacation and we're just happy with mud pies. Like, we're so easily entertained and amused and just want to stay with the status quo and our diet, our genetics and all this stuff, then we're never going to think we can have something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I was going to digress even more.
Do it.
Miss Owen's conversation, but so she had this whole conversation recently about people in China and just the oppression and this idea of like, why are they at a huge country with so many people, why do they not stand up? And the conclusion she made in her video was that this idea of like, is it because they don't know it's possible? Like, they don't know what freedom is. They've never tasted it. They don't even know how do you fight for something that you don't know exists?
Yeah.
And this idea that like those of us who want to fight, like, there's something in that it's like, don't stop fighting, don't get weary or tired or, you know.
It's John Mulaney. Remember that do you listen to John Mulaney? He's a comedian. We only listened to one of his like segments because he went super political. But his joke was like, before I had a girlfriend, I had no standards for how I should be treated. She'd be like, the bus driver shouldn't talk to you that way. And he's like, no, he shouldn't. It's like, if you don't realize that you can stand up for yourself, you're just not going to do it. It's like, your food should be here by now. Like, we should complain to the waiter. And then he's like, oh, yes, I should. It's like, if you have no standard for how you should be treated, no wonder you're being walked all over. I remember when I was saying about parasites. Other countries they do parasite protocols as like a routine thing. Like, there are a couple other countries that it's like standard health protocol for everybody. They're like, Americans don't do that. And like, I saw a TikTok where someone was like, I'm sorry, my grandma did this, my mom did this, I do this to my kids. Like, and America doesn't do this? I didn't realize this till now that America doesn't do this. And I was like, keep the sick and the dumb. Come on. Not us anymore.
Yes. Right.
Parasite free since 93? No, not really. But
I was like, 93, girl.
No, well, that's just the year I was born. I don't know why I was wrong with that, but
oh yeah. This idea of fighting for something better.
So, are you taking online clients?
Yeah. So I can do virtual one-on-one.
You can?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Or my class. So you have the option of,
your class would just be specifically for kids and family. So they wouldn't sign up for your class to like, if someone was like just like me and they were like, they didn't realize how bad they had gotten, because like, you don't realize it's usually a slow fade, and then you're just like, what am I doing down in this dumpster? How did I get here? And it's on fire. What's going on? They don't, like, a lot of people don't realize, like I didn't, and then your body just starts screaming at you with acne, being like, fix me, something's going on.
Yeah.
You, like, non-observant girl, come on. So they wouldn't sign up for,
the program. Yeah.
They wouldn't sign up for the program unless it was like a family thing. They were all trying to get healthy.
Right.
And if that's the case, we probably should have covered this in the last one. Are you like, when you do family that might be warrior kids, are you helping the parents get healthy as well?
No, it would be targeted at consults for the children. Okay. At the same time, there is a call to do this as a family to some degree. Now, you wouldn't necessarily have specialized intake forms or things like that to kind of work through. At the same time, I mean, in the same way that I feel like my son benefited from my healing, it wasn't, he still needed his own private stuff. Yeah. But so much of the information, like so much of what I did just as a family really helped him in his journey moving forward. We already laid some foundational pieces. So to some degree, doing the class as a family, yes, it's specialized to children, but a lot of times, which I've done this, and even talking about the dyslexia and stuff for you, like so many times as a mom, I'll be working through things on him to heal. And I'm like, oh, I do the same thing over here. Mm-hmm. So I think there can be a healing in doing it as a family. But if it's like specific one-on-one consults, then I can do that virtually or in person if you're local.
Yeah. Do it. It's awesome. It was life-changing for me. Homegirls changed my life. And like what sucks is that like, not sucks, but like I look back and I'm like, we now have a jar that we put in positive things that happen, because I'm apparently pretty pessimistic that like I don't remember the good things at the end of the year. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? I love that though. I'm like, what?
It's like the opposite of a swear jar.
Yeah, it's like, what the heck happened this year? Nothing positive happened. And then like, this is the first year we've done it. So like, we're going to go back and look and be like, this positive thing happened, this thing happened. It's like, oh, I mean, not at the beginning of last year, but in 2020, like I didn't sleep through the night and I never felt rested. Whereas now, like I wake up and I'm like, hi, here we go. It's not like I like bounce out of bed and I'm like, this is fantastic. Right. It's like, I just don't feel dead inside. So it's great. Yeah. And there's, it's just great. So reach out to Emily. Mm-hmm.
One thing I'd like to add to wrap this up is I think there's really, really strong power in testimony. There's strong power in what you went through in your story. And I think for those of us who have had healing, there's a lot of power in just sharing our story. I think sometimes we think, well, it's not as dramatic as this person over here, or nobody cares about my story. But there is. Like, if you have a story, whatever platform or community or whatever you have, like, don't be afraid to share that. I think that can be really powerful. It can be the difference between, like life and death to some degree. I mean, not to be super dramatic, but
no, seriously. And I know my acne isn't the worst that it could have been, but I think it was correlated with also how bad I felt. And also, like, I've just seen this through life. I'm 28, but like, I feel like I've seen this through life. When someone says something and you don't know why you remember it, but it resonated with you, even though you can't relate to it, but you resonate with it. And then 3 years later, the exact same thing happens with you. And you have that bank to go back to and be like, I'm going to go talk to this person because I'm going through the same thing right now. Yeah. Like, it's all about, to me, transparency and honesty and being real with mental health, and how like not every day is fantastic. You can't look at Instagram, it's a highlight reel. Like, that's why I'm not on it now, Monday through Friday. I'm not on it. I'll get on the weekend and post for shows, unless there's a special occasion I have to go post for shows. But it's authenticity, because you never know, like, you might not be going through something now, but something someone said 3 years ago will resonate with you in a year. And you just never know what or when someone's going to go through something that they could potentially reach back out to you, or have that piece of encouraging information to where they know how to take the next step. You just never know. Like, you never know what people are going through. And if you take a step of sharing.
No, if it's in like, we'll share it now. And then, like you said, like in a year from now, they go, didn't they share that a year ago? Yeah. Let me go back and ask them.
And usually, like, what I find interesting is, like, someone says something and it plants that seed in your mind. You don't know why you remember. It's like, why? That was not really that significant. And then years down the line, you're like, oh, dang it. Like, God knew I was going to need that, or somewhere in my subconscious, like, I knew I was going to need this. And so I feel like I think we both do a nice job of just pretty blunt and honest on this podcast. And you're not going to hear about parasites anywhere else, friends. I'm just kidding. Probably will. They're pretty popular now.
They are.
But you never know.
Depends on what you're listening to.
Yeah. So reach out to Emily if you really, what is your next specialty? What is your favorite thing? I know kids is your passion.
Yeah. I would say kids in general. Yeah. I feel like most kids have some form of neurological inflammation and gut issues. I love helping other people get better, because I do think that one of the best ways to help heal a child is to heal their mom. That can definitely be a segue. So I would say kids first, and then moms and young women second. So like, I don't think you have to be a mom before like I'll help you or something, like our hormones are all very similar. And I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I feel like
it's also
my brain kind of went,
because I'm not a parent, but someday I will be a parent. And I feel like working with you has laid like the groundwork for like my body to better thrive and being pregnant and having a kid, because like now I don't feel bad anymore. Like, everyone has their bad days and it ebbs and flows, but it's like, I listened to a podcast. I sent it to you, I think, of a woman, a doctor. She was like, most of our care is like prepping women to get pregnant because they've been on birth control for so long that they can't get pregnant. So we're like reversing a bunch of stuff.
Sure.
And I'm like, I think I inadvertently, even though I was only on it for a short period of time, like essentially that's what I'm doing. I'm just healing my body from the bad decisions that I made a long time ago. And you need somebody who knows more than you. Like it was like me laying down my pride to be like, I can't learn everything about the human body. I don't have time. I work a full-time job. I tour full-time. I don't have time.
Yeah.
Just to be like, hey, Emily, here's my debit card. Heal me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I would say kids and then probably women to about 40, is kind of where I feel God's kind of called me into.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Again, there's been a couple kind of call to actions through this of just sharing your story, especially if you have a friend, a family member, yourself that has, a similar story or situation with acne, knowing that there is hope and that you don't have to live with it for the rest of your life. There's always a root cause to why your body's reacting in a certain way, and you don't have to Band-Aid. Yeah. So we appreciate you guys watching. If you share it with anybody, we would love that. That always helps us out and just keeps this kind of message of hope going.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week.
Bye. Guys, and I do like chit, 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 chat. And then it's like,
I thought you were cursing.